Please subscribe to this channel for more videos related to Catholic Christian teaching. The essential sacrificial action cannot lie in the offertory at the Mass, for the sacrificial gift, properly so called, is not the bread and the wine, but Christ's body and blood. The offering of bread and wine serves only as a preparation for the sacrifices. Again, the priest's communion cannot be regarded as the essential sacrificial action. The sacrificial banquet does not pertain to the essence of the sacrifice, for there are also true sacrifices without sacrificial food. For example, the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. The partaking of the sacrificial nourishment presupposes the consummation of the sacrifice. Further, the communion is not accomplished in the name of Christ, the primary sacrificial priest. It is not, as is the sacrifice, primarily directed to the honor of God, but to the profit of the recipient himself, and it is not an appropriate representation of Christ's sacrifice. The teaching of the Council of Trent speaks of the essential sacrificial action and the communion when it says, "If anyone says that the offering consists merely in the fact that Christ is given to us to eat, let him be anathema." Again, the essential sacrificial action is not made up of the communion of the priest in conjunction with the consecration, as those who favor the destruction theory maintain. According to this theory, the essence of the sacrifice is the destruction of the sacrificial gift. Quite apart from the question of the validity of the notions underlying the theory, we note that in fact, no destruction of the sacrificial gift, properly so called, occurs in the communion, but merely a destruction of the species. Further, the declaration of the Council of Trent, cited earlier, cannot be reconciled easily with this theory. The priest's communion is not a constitutive element of the sacrifice of the Mass. Nevertheless, it is an integrating constituent part of it. Since the Mass is as an offering of food adapted to the partaking of the food of the sacrifice, the communion of the faithful is requisite neither for the validity nor for the receipt of the sacrifice of the Mass, but it is highly desirable. Again, the essential sacrificial action is not the prayer of the offering after the transubstantiation, for the priest does not utter this prayer in the name of Christ, but in his own name and in the name of the community. Further, this prayer was not instituted by Christ and can be omitted in exceptional case. The breaking of the host and the mixings of the species do not appertain to the essential sacrificial action, for both rites are not directed immediately to the sacrificial gifts, but to the species, and may be omitted in exceptional cases. Further, the rite of mixing the species is of church origin. The essential sacrificial action consists in the transubstantiation alone. The transubstantiation instituted by Christ is effected by the priest in the name of Christ on the sacrificial gift, properly so called, and is a representation of the sacrifice of the cross. For the completion of the sacrifice, the double consecration is necessary, since Christ thus consummated the sacrifice at the Last Supper. Apart from Christ's example, the double consecration is necessary in order to represent, in a sacramental manner, the real separation of the body and blood of Christ, which took place in the sacrifice of the cross. According to St. Gregory of Nazianzus, the priest, uttering the words of consecration, sunders with unbloody cut the body and the blood of the Lord, using his voice as a sword. Supported by the terminology of the Fathers, theologians speak of an unbloody or mystical immolation of Christ, of the divine sacrificial lamb. St. Thomas also places the Eucharistic sacrificial action in the consecration. Please go to YouTube Retirementality channel, playlist Sacraments, for the complete series of these materials.